and this is according to the Washington Post, the Maryland Republican Party is at war with itself after Dan Cox's failed governor's race. And for those in maybe Timonium, seppuku means suicide. So you can't commit suicide over and over again, but the Washington Post would sure like to think that we can. And rather than focus on the speculations by the Post, I'm going to ask Marc, who is the secretary of the Maryland Republican Party, what's going on with your party, and you know, is it self-imploding?
Well, by the time this show airs, we may see whether or not I'm still secretary or not. So that's an interesting question. The observation I would make is that, sort of to quote Tolstoy, every unhappy family is unhappy in its own way. Clearly, the Republicans have done well compared to its numbers over the last several gubernatorial elections. This one was a disappointment.
Well, but aren't we seeing the same tug of war in other states?
Absolutely. There's
it probably becomes, you know, I mean, what I didn't understand, and I, you know, thought Kelly Schultz should have been the nominee for your party. What I didn't understand was why they would break a successful model that had been successful in 2 out of the last 3 elections and go for someone who was so demonstrably extreme.
There was and continues to be great frustration on the part of many Republicans, particularly in the, how shall I say, reddest part of the state, for there to be with Governor Hogan. I mean, Governor Hogan had to reach out to Democrats and independents to get elected. The numbers are such that Republicans alone don't elect very many offices in Maryland. You need to have at least a third or more of your votes coming from someone else. And for many Republicans, the aspiration was to have somebody who was more completely Republican or completely conservative. And obviously the numbers aren't, the numbers represent a challenge to be able to elect someone like that.
Can this ball throw 2 cents in here?
Yeah.
The bottom line is this, you know, the Republican Party of Connie Morella, Nancy Dasik, Betty Ann Kroenke, these people, they were more moderate. And I mean, Sully Sullivan, I think Sullivan has a future in county government. You know, we have to be more moderate in nature. If you're gonna allow the issues to affect you in ways that make you seem angry, the public doesn't like that. I mean, that's the bottom line. And, you know, that the Republican Party has been leaning in that direction, in my opinion. Now, I know my phone's going to go off the hook, you know, with people disagreeing with me. But, you know, when you push the envelope too far, you're rocking the boat.
I think there's certainly a need, you know, to examine the future of the Republican Party. They did not do well in this election, although with the charismatic nature of Wes Moore, they might not have been able to win with a more moderate candidate anyway. I mean, Governor-elect Moore certainly performed extraordinarily well. So, but I'm going to leave it to Marc to have the last word here.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I mean, in Montgomery County, to Cary's point, it's the math is this, that Republican registration is slightly under 15% now. When Larry Hogan was elected 4 years ago, he got 44% of the vote. Assuming turnout was roughly the same across the board, what that means is that 2/3 of the votes in Montgomery County that Hogan got came from not Republicans, but came from independents and Democrats. And that's, of course, assuming, you know, Hogan got all of the Republican votes. That's the kind of challenge of crossover. And in order to get elected statewide, you've got to do much better in Montgomery County than the enrollment figures would allow you to do, because in the reddest parts of the states, they're already at 70, 80%. There's not a lot of voting Republican. There's not a lot of extra votes to be had.
Well, you got to get your votes from the population basis.
Right.
You've got to get your vote from Montgomery County, Prince George's County, Howard County, and Arundel County, and Baltimore County.
Right.
Otherwise, you don't have a chance to win. I mean, that's just the fact of life if you want to win statewide. You know, the bigger issue, and we haven't touched on this, we're not going to now, is the lack of competitiveness of Republicans in our own county, and whether there's a hope. Because as Cary mentioned, we did have elected officials on the county council, as state members of the state delegate, but you know, that's been a long time since anyone has been in those positions.